I think we can agree, maybe, that one of the hardest things in life is making and maintaining friendships. Making and maintaining friendships. And I wonder if you've noticed that the older you get, the harder it gets, right? When you're young and when you're a kid, it's really simple. It's really easy. You see a kid eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you come up to that kid and you say, "Hey, I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches," and you are best friends for life, right? You will die for that kid. So when you're young, it's super easy, right? It's easy to make friends. It's easy to keep friends. You're around friends all the time. By the time we're teenagers, it all becomes head games, right? Like, I can't just talk to that person. I can't just introduce myself with my name and tell them things I like and say I like the things they like. You can't do that, right? And I can't be friends with them because they're friends with this group and she used to date this guy, and it'll never work, right? It's all head games. And then when we're adults, of course, well, we're just too busy. We're too busy to have friends. We're too busy to make friends. Long hours, highly individualized lifestyles, and our culture is sort of built this way. A report out of Harvard last year, now obviously last year we've got to take COVID into account and all this stuff, but it said 36% of all Americans feel, quote, serious loneliness. 36% of our population. So no sense of community, no meaningful relationships or friendships. That included 61% of young adults. 61% of young adults and 51% of young mothers feel serious loneliness. And then, of course, as we age and we get older, people move on, life goes on, friendships fade away, and then we start seeing names in the obituary. And then even the friends we did have are gone. And so friendship is really crucial to our lives. And when we don't have it, it really shows. It really does show. God created us to be social creatures, right? He created us to be in relationship with each other. Maybe you're fortunate enough to have that. Maybe you're fortunate enough to have some good, close friends that you can rely on, and maybe you take that for granted. Maybe you don't realize how good you've got it. Maybe you only have one friend, one person that you would actually call a friend. Maybe you have none right now. Maybe some big life changes have happened, and everyone's moving in and moving out. That's where young adults come in with that statistic that 61% feel serious loneliness, right? People are moving away, going to different schools, and where are my friends? Same thing with young mothers. You bring a baby home, and you just can't maintain the relationships you had before. And so friendships are really, really valuable. And the book of Proverbs agrees with that, which is really great because, Proverbs is all about real life, daily life. It agrees that friendships are really, really crucial to us as people. In fact, Proverbs argues that friendship is maybe even more important than you think. Maybe even more important than you think. Proverbs 27, verse 17 says, and this is a very popular proverb, I'm sure you're familiar with it, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. So the people we're close to, right, our friendships, they're not just nice to have, and they're not just good for you and, your mental health and your well-being as a person. Friendships are formative. They're formative. The company you keep and the friendships that you maintain and the people you hang out with, they actually shape you as a person, right? As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And the awesome thing about that is that you get to choose who those people are. That's the beauty of friendship, right? You don't get to choose your family, unfortunately, I'm sorry, and the ways that they shape you. You don't get to choose that. You don't get to choose your coworkers. You don't get to choose your classmates. But you do get to choose your friends. You get to decide the kinds of people you're going to surround yourself with and be friends with. And Proverbs would like us to know, because that is a decision, because that is a choice that you have to make, our choices require what? A lot of wisdom. We have to be wise about this. And so the guiding principle comes from Proverbs 12:26, which says, life is a highway. No, wait. Sorry, I got that. Thanks, Sam. Got that stuck in my head. What is Proverbs? 12:26 says this. This is sort of the guideline for friendship. This is how to be wise about it. The righteous choose their friends carefully. They choose their friends carefully. But the way of the wicked leads them astray. And so if you want to read the Hebrew even more literally, where it says choose carefully, what it literally says is start an investigation, which sounds a little bit more ominous, doesn't it? Start an investigation of your friends or who your friends are going to be. Do some reconnaissance, gather evidence, do some interviews, build a case. Why? Why do we have to be that careful? Why do we have to be detectives about this? Well, because Proverbs believes that the company you keep directly impacts the kind of person you're going to become. And so, of course, you have to be careful about that. And the truth is that you can make friends with the wrong people. You can surround yourself with the wrong people. The old saying goes, bad company spoils good character, right? You've probably heard that before. Paul says that in 1 Corinthians 15:33. He actually copied that or borrowed that from an older Greek poet. Wisdom is sort of universal that way. But Proverbs isn't just concerned about who our friends are and what we're doing with them, when we're hanging out with them, but what our friends are doing to us, right? How they are shaping us as people. And when we think of friendship, I think there's a problem here. I think that's one of the last things on our minds when we think of friendship, right? We're not thinking, how is this person shaping me? How is this person turning me into someone else? We're asking, does this person like me? Right? That would be a win right there. If somebody likes me, great. I'm going to go with that. Do I like them? Do they help me fit in our context, whether it's work or at school, right? Do they help me have that sort of feeling? Do we share similar interests? Do we share similar opinions and hobbies? Do we have the same enemies? Sometimes that's a good way to make friends. If you can bash on the same people and be like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do that more often, right? And then ultimately, are we having fun? Right? You got to have fun with your friends, right? And if the answer to those questions, if you ask them enough times and the answer is yes enough times, well, that must be my friend. That's my friend. And so it mostly revolves around preferences and pastimes, right? Those are who our friends are. And that's okay, but Proverbs wants us to be more careful. Proverbs wants us to be more careful about who we choose to hang out with, who we choose to be our friends. Start an investigation. Make sure your friends are really your friends. Make sure the people you call your friends are actually, fulfill the definition of that word, is another way you could say that, because they are shaping you. They are shaping you. And we're not just talking about besties here, okay? We're not just talking about best friends. There's no Hebrew word for BFFs or anything like that. In fact, the Hebrew word for friend here has a wide range of meanings. It can range anything from a work acquaintance to a best friend or like a closer person, but also your next door neighbor who you may or may not know, like a fellow countryman, and also your lover. So you could also know them really, really well. The word has a wide range of meaning. And we could even throw social media into the mix now and how we interact with people online and our friends online, the people you invite into your homes through your TVs and your phones and listen to all the time and say, yeah, we're on the same page about these things. We have to be careful about the company we keep, period, okay? But it is true that we do have different orbits that we kind of fit people into around us, right? We keep people at these different orbits. So, of course, best friends and really close people like that are in a tighter orbit around us, and then you've got, work friends that you're maybe not so close with, acquaintances, classmates, and then enemies are like way out here, and then all the way on the farthest reaches of space are, like your in-laws. I'm just kidding, I love my in-laws. But Proverbs says, we're tighter than that. But Proverbs says it is the people in the tightest orbit around us that we need to be the most careful about. And that, which means our best friends, right? The people, our really close friends, we have to be the most careful about them because they're shaping us the most. And Proverbs has some really good insights on who those kind of people should be, what a good friend is. And so a good friend is three things, at least three things that we see in Proverbs. A good friend is consistently there for you. A good friend stabs you in the front as opposed to the back. And we'll unpack that a little bit. And then three, a good friend makes you a better person. They make you a better person, right? That iron sharpening iron. They actually improve you. They sharpen you. They don't dull you. And so first, a good friend is consistently there for you. Notice I did not say always there for you. We cannot put these sort of omnipresent expectations on our friends, right? They're not God. They can't be there every single time. They're their own people with their own boundaries, their own schedules, right? We can't just say, you weren't there for me that time, so we're no longer friends anymore. We don't put these omnipresent expectations on our friends, but they are consistent. They are very consistent. For as many times as they can't make it, or they can't call us back or whatever, there's 2 times that they can. Because they're consistent, right? Because a good friend genuinely cares about you. And we're always consistent with the things that we care about, right? If we care about work, we'll make sure we show up on time. If we care about our friends, we'll make sure that we show up for them too. And so they're consistently there for us. Not always, but consistently. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times. And so when they are there always there for you, right? Consistently there for you. Not for themselves, not for some other reason. They're there for you, right? They care about you. A good friend is present, and a good friend is compassionate, right? They listen to you. They care about you, what you're going through. And so those are the kinds of people we want to surround ourselves with. We can hang out and have fun together, and that's great. That's what friends do. But what we really need is someone to support us when things get rough. And that Proverbs says those are the real friends. Those are the real people you want to keep close to you. Proverbs warns us many, many other times, we're not going to read all of them here, but many times about fair weather friends, right? Fair weather friends, friends who flake all the time, are always too busy, friends who only seem to want to hang out when things are going well for them or between you, and all of a sudden they're too busy when you're going through something. And then they turn around and expect you to be there for them when they're going through a hard time. Friends who even when they are present with you, they don't really encourage you at all. In fact, they might even talk down to you and say the opposite of encouraging things. So Proverbs 18:24 says that if you surround yourself with people like that, inconsistent friends, you come to ruin, right? You're like a building that collapses in on itself, right? When things get rough, you get roughed up. Because you have inconsistent friends who don't really care about you, they don't really support you, they're not there for you when you really need them. And so true friendship goes deeper than that, right? They're consistently there for you, especially when things get rough, because they don't want to see you come to ruin. They're present and they're compassionate. So that's a really good friend. Secondly, a good friend stabs you in the front. In other words, a good friend is trustworthy and honest. That's just a nicer way of saying that, I guess. Sometimes we can surround ourselves with people who tell us exactly what we want to hear and who make us feel what we want to feel or how we want to feel, and we make the mistake of calling them our friends because they're saying what we like and they're making us feel the way we like. But Proverbs warns us, and it's not true all the time. It's a wise observation that Proverbs makes, right? It's just making an observation that if anyone is going to flatter you and if anyone's going to tell you what you want to hear, it's most likely not the people who have your back, but the people who are aiming at your back, right? An enemy multiplies kisses, right? They flatter, they build you up, but they have these ulterior motives. They have these agendas. Or maybe they're just afraid to confront you, right? And in that case, they're not really a friend. Now, this is not saying that you should be suspicious of absolutely everyone who has ever complimented you before, or you should be suspicious every time someone agrees with you. That's not the takeaway from this proverb. The takeaway is that your true friends will shoot straight with you if you need to hear it, and they will do that when no one else will. Their only motive is to tell you the truth. Because they are consistently there for you and they care about you as a person, their only agenda is to make sure that you hear the truth. And so a good friend will tell you what you need to hear. A good friend is brave enough to confront you on stuff. That's a true friend. And even if it hurts, Proverbs says that wound can be trusted. Even if it really stings and it feels kind of unfair, you can trust it because it is coming from someone whose only agenda is your well-being and your growth. Now, it takes some discernment to tell that, I think. There's some wisdom that we need there, but we can't just turn on our friends when they tell us the truth either, right? That's actually a sign of a really good friend, that they can do that. Now, sometimes friends can take this too far, and friends can be overly critical and friends can be overly judgmental on each other. They can be brutally honest, right? Not gracefully honest, but brutally honest, especially in front of other friends and other groups as a way to put you down or make fun of you. They might share personal things without your permission. They might just be straight up mean to you, and they might just prey on your insecurities. That's not the kind of honesty we're talking about here, right? Not that brutal, vicious kind of honesty. But, having that honest friend card does not give you license to be a jerk, okay? A good friend helps us see our blind spots for sure, but they do it in a kind and loving and generous way, right? They stab us in the front. Proverbs 27, verse 9 says, "Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice." What does that mean? Well, perfume and incense is sort of a code word, I guess you could say, in Hebrew for parties and other like festive occasions, right? This is when you brought all that stuff out. And so it's saying having fun, hanging out, feeling good, fitting in with friends brings a lot of joy, right? It's good to just let loose and be with those kinds of fun sort of people. But the real value of a friend is their heartfelt advice, right? Someone that you can rely on to give it to you straight. Not just to have fun with, but to really give you the truth. They're honest and they're trustworthy, and they never stab you in the back, but they will stab you in the front if they have to, and that's actually a really good thing. Lastly, a good friend makes you a better person, right? We've already said that, Proverbs 27:17, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another," rather than dull them, hopefully, and a good friend is somebody who does that, right? Everyone we're surrounded with is shaping us in some sort of way, but a good friend shapes us in positive ways, not negative ways. And Proverbs has lots of examples of bad friendships, what they look like, and what they do to us, and how they shape us in negative ways. So for example, Proverbs 22, here's an example of a bad friend. "Don't make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared." Right? Picking up from Proverbs 27. They're going to shape you in this way. So don't hang out with them. And so sometimes, I said this before, we find camaraderie in, bashing on certain people and getting worked up about certain issues or over the same people. Proverbs would say that's not friendship, okay? That's a faction. You've assembled a faction. That's not friends. That's not how that works. And so when we hang out with angry people, we become, surprise, angry people. And when we hang out with, this pattern repeats itself over and over again. We see a few examples in Proverbs, but when we hang out with people who gossip, big surprise, we start gossiping and we hang out with gossipers and we become gossipers. When we hang out with people who like to bully each other for fun, we become bullies, right? It's just how it works, because as iron sharpens iron, we rub off on each other, we shape each other, and before we know it, we turn into people that we weren't, the kind of people we weren't before, and maybe even the people that we don't want to be. And so sometimes friendships can get us in trouble that way. But when we hang out with someone, so here's an example of a good friend who actually makes you a better person. When we hang out with someone like we see in Proverbs 17, verse 9, for example, someone who doesn't gossip or stir things up, but actually loves and covers over offenses and doesn't, bring things back up again, we become like them. Right? And that's the kind of friend that we want. We become forgiving and gracious too. And so when Proverbs says make an investigation, be careful who you choose, saying take an inventory of the people closest in your closest orbit. Take an inventory and see how they're shaping you, right? See how they're shaping you. Are they making you a better person? Are they making you someone you weren't before? Are they making you someone you don't want to be or shouldn't be? Because a true friend makes you better. So, I'm going to end with this. I'm going to tell you about my friend. I had lots of friends growing up in high school, or at least I thought I did. Hindsight, it's great, isn't it? I thought I had a lot of friends. And when I say that, when I say friends, I mean people I hung out with, people I had lots of fun with, people I played sports with, people I got into trouble with. I had lots of that, but I didn't see it at the time. But they were shaping me into a person I didn't want to be. They really, really were. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to, have that sort of feeling. I wanted them to tell me what I wanted to hear, and I wanted to feel the way I wanted them to make me feel the way I wanted, and so I compromised. And I was dumb back then. I'm still dumb now, but I was a lot dumber back then. Didn't have a good Christian influence at all. I wasn't a Christian at all. And so I became shallow. I became a bully. I was a jerk. Lots of people liked me, but for really bad reasons, right? I was a total jerk. But then there was this one summer, I hit a really rough spot in my life, and I learned really quickly that all the people I thought were my friends, right, all in that pretty close orbit, having lots of fun together, they weren't really my friends. They weren't there for me, not just consistently, but at all. They didn't really confront me about anything, and they didn't really comfort me either. So there's all 3 of your points right there. I didn't have any of that. Until this one guy in my school basically invited me to live with him for like an entire summer, and to live with him and work with him and his brother cutting trees. Like his dad had like a tree cutting company. And so I did. I took them up on that invitation. I slept in their house. I ate all their food. And I worked every day cutting and limbing trees. And I have some scars to prove that. I don't even remember if I got paid. And I didn't care. I honestly don't remember if I got paid. I guess they fed me. That was enough. But I didn't care because I had a friend who invited me in when I really needed it. And they were consistently there for me because I was living in their house, so they couldn't avoid me. And so that sounds like the story of how I met my best friend, right? This guy who invited me over to his house and we lived all summer. No, he was not my best friend. I actually became best friends with his brother because we just had more in common. It's kind of funny. He was a great guy, but we were a little bit nerdier, and we just got on better. But anyway, his brother became my best friend. His name was Caleb, named after one of the spies who were sent into the Promised Land. And when everyone else was too afraid to enter the place that God had planned for them, he said, "No, we can do this." That's who Caleb was to me. Caleb was Caleb to me. And he was a really good friend. He was a good friend. He was consistently there for me. He was that brother born out of adversity that we saw in a passage earlier. He genuinely cared about me, and I didn't even understand why, because I hadn't done anything to earn it. Like, I hadn't performed enough for him to accept me, but he just did anyway, and I thought that was really weird. When he encouraged me, I always thought because he did it often, he encouraged me as a person, and I thought he was setting me up for a joke every time. It took me like a year to realize that there was no punchline coming. He was just saying encouraging things to me, and that was really weird. He didn't make fun of me like all my other friends did. In fact, the way he talked, it was like I was the main character in his life. Have you ever had a friend like that? I don't think any other person in the world exists like that. He actually made me feel like I was the main character in his life, in his daily schedule. He was just a weird dude. He spoke well of me in front of other people and behind my back. Never had that before. He made me a better person. He really, really did. His character rubbed off on me. He sharpened me. We'd stay up late every night. We'd stay up till like 1, 2 a.m. every single night just doing stupid things together. And yet he somehow always had time to read his Bible before going to bed. I'm like, I'm going to sleep. What are you doing? It was like 2 a.m. I wasn't a Christian then. I didn't understand what he was doing. This kid was weird. But our friendship shaped me into the person I am today because of that friendship. And so I just want to share that, my good friend. But you know how things go, right? I said it at the top, the older you get, the harder it gets to maintain and make friendships. Things change. We hardly ever talk anymore. I think I talked to him once when I came to Jamestown, and that's been 4 years now. Thankfully, I have other friends, good friends. I have a best friend named Emily. But I've come to realize that as much as I miss having a friend like Caleb, I probably shouldn't be waiting around for another one to come around. Sometimes I think when we look at Proverbs, we kind of use this as our guide to choose who our next friend is going to be. But as I was kind of studying this and looking at what friendship means, I realized I should be worrying about being someone else's Caleb, right? Stop waiting around for mine to come back or to have a new one. I should be Caleb to someone else. And so that's why I share these things with you today. Certainly as a guide to choose your friends, that's really important, but not just as that, but as a challenge for you to choose to be that friend to someone else. And I mean like this week, like do it this week. Whether it's a relationship that has sort of grown apart, or a classmate that has no one to sit with, maybe a new kid or just a weird kid, right, in everyone else's eyes, a difficult coworker, your next door neighbor who you've just gone this many years without ever talking to. I encourage you to be there for them. I encourage you to speak the truth in their life, to encourage them, be a good influence, because I know for a fact that those small little things really can change a person's life, because it did me. And so be careful who your friends are. You certainly look at this. Be careful about the company you keep. But as Christians, be the company that somebody needs, so that they can get to the place that God has planned for them. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for friendship. Thank you for creating us for relationships that build us and shape us into better people. We confess, Lord, that we are not always good friends, and we've been hurt many times by toxic and broken friendships. And so we ask for wisdom to know what true friendship looks like from your word. Not just the people who are surrounding us, Lord, but how we are surrounding others. Thank you for showing us what true friendship looks like through your Son, Jesus, who came to earth to be there for us when we needed him consistently, to tell us the truth even when it hurt, and to make us better people through his teaching, but ultimately his sacrifice and resurrection. Lord, we ask your Spirit to put on our hearts this week that one person that you want us to be a friend to. And please give us the strength and the wisdom to do that well. We pray this in Jesus' name.